Hello everyone and welcome back to Push the Point. It's me, Simon again, and today I am joined by two illustrious guests. We have Jake Warburton, top 8 at Pro Tour 3 in Baltimore and a ProQuest winner here in the UK. And we have Rob Catton, who's been a long-time friend of the show. He's been on a few times now, top 8 at Worlds and also top 8 at Calling in New Jersey. Gents, good evening. Thank you very much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Just been chilling at home today. Yeah. How are you, Rob?
Yeah, all good. Feeling better. I've been sick all Pro Tour, so yeah, doing better now.
So
Yeah, I think you would have won without that.
Yeah, it happened in Lille as well. I think were you in Lille, Simon?
I didn't make it to Lille. No, work took me away from Lille. But tell us a bit more. Like, what happened? What's been going down?
It's like I say, it's the second time it's happened. First time when it was in Lille, I was X-1, and then was just had the worst night of my life. And now in Baltimore, I was 5-2, which isn't as good, but just as soon as I got there, I've been jet lagged ever since I've been there,
Yeah.
and don't know what I ate different to everybody else, but I had like loads of sickness. I'm not going to go into graphic details, but I also had like tremors. Like I was shaking in bed, thought
Wow.
I was going to have to go to hospital. Yeah, really, really weird. But meant I couldn't really eat anything on holiday as well, which sucked, especially when you're in America.
Yeah. So, had you eaten anything dodgy in the lead up, or do you just think it was a physical reaction to the jet lag, or?
I think it's probably got to have been something that I ate. Like we went to a barbecue place, and I think I'm the only one who ate the sausage. But and pork can be a bit weird, so I don't
It
know.
definitely can be. Well, I'm sorry to hear you've been unwell. Are you recovered now? Are you feeling a bit more yourself?
Yeah, I've kicked Monster though, which is good because I've I was down to like I was having like 2 cans a day, and now I've like because I haven't been drinking it because I've been unwell. I'm like, oh, I can just get rid of that. So it's a nice silver lining.
Okay. Okay. Got rid of some bad dietary influences. Um,
Mm.
Jake, how have you been recovering from your incredible weekend last weekend?
I'm thinking back to normal now because I had some jet lag. It affected me more than I thought it would. Yeah, went to work on Tuesday. Really struggled to do anything because I work from home anyways.
Okay.
Log in, have the meetings, and then trying to do the general work was just such a struggle. But yeah, back to normal.
Did you get home Monday then? Usually it's like an overnight flight, isn't it, back from the US? But you managed to get back on the Monday.
Yeah, we set off before the tournament ended. Really,
Okay.
we set off about 7 p.m. their time, and then came back.
Wow.
It was 11 a.m.
Yeah. Wow. So if you'd have got any further than you did, you would have been struggling to get the flight.
Yeah.
Not saying that you threw the game intentionally to make sure you got home or anything. No.
No, definitely not.
Okay, so obviously, gents, the reason we have you both on the show is not because you are two of Yorkshire's premier flesh and blood players. I mean, it is partly that, but mostly because you come up with an Azalea deck that reached top 8 at the Pro Tour. Just tell me about the introduction to that process. Like, where did that idea come from?
Well, so we got a list from Levi Roach, who's the professional, the best Azalea player that I've known anyway.
Yeah.
So it's heavily based off that, and I guess we started testing it together because we wanted to pick what we would play, and I think you were testing different things, but I was just pretty heavy set on Azalea because it kind of matches my play style.
Okay. And obviously with Outsiders, we got a lot more tools for Azalea. And in the first few weeks after that, I think we saw Levi, was he top 8'd in a Battle Hardened very early on?
Yeah, he was. It was Chicago Brawl.
Right.
And he was in the finals with Brody, just playing this similar deck. So was definitely a good influencer.
So you took you took Levi's like deck skeleton, and then you started to test it together. Rob, were you on board with Azalea early on? Because you've been obviously a big Fi player in the past.
Yeah, which obviously, given the little ban, just dropped off a cliff, really. Yeah, I was looking for something new, and I really like the idea of Death Dealer. Just coming from Magic, drawing cards is always the best thing, and and I really like the idea that it just like crushed all these aggro decks because it got to play Red in the Ledger, and like all the new toys from Outsiders. The one thing I remember, Jake really got deep into the deck and learning how to play the deck a lot sooner than I did, and I was worried because I was putting off having to test into all of them. So I was putting off for a while, and like because that's like the dreaded matchup.
Okay.
Which we'll get into, I'm sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, we are going to go into the deck in detail in a bit, and I appreciate you both sharing the deck and going through it with us. But just taking a step back and about the experiences you had while out in Baltimore, obviously barring your illnesses, Rob. With the event, Jake, how was your first experience of a professional level Flesh and Blood event?
Yeah, it was good. It was not a million miles away from just a pro quest that I did. You got to, do everything correctly, follow the rules, and not shortcut and things like that. So just trying to play cleanly. And then, so the first day was just like, make sure you do everything in order and don't not be clear. It was quite interesting. Yeah.
And what about the stuff around the event, like the players briefing on the Thursday night, or the James White intro on the Thursday night? And how did you find the atmosphere while you were there?
The atmosphere was just like really so cool. I've never seen so many Flesh and Blood players in one place, so everyone was there for one thing, and that was really interesting. You can talk to anyone about the game; they all have this passion for it.
Yeah, and obviously most people there a lot of the people there are playing the Pro Tour, so they've got the qualifications to talk about their decks and how they're playing as well. It's a real melting pot of talent.
Yeah, So during the games, I was trying not to think that, this person's probably the best from their specific area, just trying to like focus on not that really.
Yeah, just on the deck itself and how you're playing the mechanics of the deck.
Yeah.
Nice one. And Rob, have you been to all 4 pro level events now?
Yeah.
And how did Baltimore compare? I know we talked about San Jose not quite living up to expectations, but how would you compare Baltimore to the other events we've been to?
So venue-wise, like the actual convention center and like the room that we're in and stuff was pretty much spot on. Like you can't really ask for any better than that. The area that you like watch the feature matches on had like a little stage around it, so you can like go up some stairs and you're like looking down on it. And that was really cool.
That is pretty cool.
And it meant that it's like at Worlds, it was just like a cordoned off area.
Yeah.
And like once you've got the people who are all stood at the front of the like barricade thing, who they can't really see very well anyway. The people behind them are just so much worse off.
Yeah.
So that was really good. Really good bathrooms, just like that. The whole venue was just really solid and like can't complain there. The actual city, they're never gonna choose like New York City. Like New Jersey was as close as we're gonna get, and they're never gonna choose like LA or anything like that. 'Cause it's just gonna cost far too much. And they're already like giving so much money that you can't really bash on them too much for choosing somewhere like Baltimore, because it makes sense logistically. And if you didn't go too far by yourself, I think it was okay. It's a little bit ropey at some areas of the city, but where we were was fine. So yeah,
you were pretty happy with it.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't have any problems with it. The weather was a bit grim, so that wasn't ideal. But I think we went to some decent places to eat, and the accommodation was fine.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
in terms of how the event was run, you I think these big events have generally been pretty well run, considering how many people that were there. Did you have any major issues, any major delays, or judge calls, or?
no, I didn't. I think actually thinking about it, it's one of the things you don't think about when it goes well because you just don't notice it. It's just like running as you would think it would. One thing that was I really liked Star City Games after that event, to be honest, actually, because like one thing that happened was a few of us, like me and Jake and a couple of others, Lila and Matt, were all signed up to the calling, the Fable package.
Okay, yeah.
And we didn't end up needing it, so we said, "Oh, can we unregister?" And they signed us up to the Battle Hardened for free. So you either got Battle Hardened or like I think Jake got some event tickets or like an event pass thing.
Oh, nice.
I think silver. It's a pretty good one.
Yeah,
it's a lot of
money. Like if it was Tournament Center, I don't know if I'm allowed to rag on them in this, but if it was Tournament Center, you wouldn't have not have got that for free. They would have said, "Okay, you've unregistered, go away."
Okay, so you managed to get your money moved across to other events, and they basically looked after you.
Exactly, yeah. So couldn't be happy with that, to be honest. Yeah.
Awesome. So it's nice to hear then, from my point of view, that LSS and Flesh and Blood are moving, at least in the US, are moving to a better provider than maybe Channel Fireball was along the way. So that is really good to hear. Thank you. All right. So in terms of your tournament performance, Rob, let's start with you. How was day one? Like, it was 3cc and then, 4cc and then 3 draft. How did you get on with your Azalea deck?
So I went 3-1 in the across the 4 rounds.
Yeah.
I think I beat a Katsu and a Xi in the first couple of rounds. Then I played a Dramai.
Yeah.
And was really happy to beat the Dramai, so I was 3-0. And then I was brought a little bit down to reality when a Dramai gave me a kicking.
Oh, really?
I mean, to be fair, I say kicking. We're both on 1 life.
Okay.
And I blind Azalea'd into a red arrow, and 9 was dominate, but they had enough to block 9 through dominate as well. So. I was happy enough 1-1 against Dramai, because that's a matchup that's I could easily walk away at 0-2 against. So I was 3-1 after that.
Nice one.
And then I drafted Katsu and went 2-1. My only loss being to the other Katsu that I was passing to, which is not the way you would normally see that go. You would normally think you beat the Katsu that you're passing to, but yeah.
As an aside, you probably already guessed, I'm quite a fan of Katsu in Outsiders Draft. You usually end up as one or two in the pod. And if you know Katsu anyway, it's quite a nice position to be in. So I can understand how you did fairly well there. So you finished the day 5-2, and you made the decision that you were going to carry on into day 2, probably needing you realized you probably needed to lose only 1 game on the second day, and you started with draft. How was that?
Again, drafted Katsu, and my only loss was the other Katsu who was passing to me this time.
Okay, so that went oddly.
Yeah, very similar scenario to the first day. But I was happy with that. 2-1, going 4-2 in a Pro Tour draft is pretty solid, to be honest. Yeah. And then into the constructed, I think I beat an Oldhim to begin with, which I was obviously thrilled with at that point. I was like, if you're beating Oldhims with this deck, then nothing can stop you. And then I lost to Alexi, who ended up actually coming 8th. That was Maximilian, I think.
Yeah. Stacks well, is it?
So pretty sad to be beating Oldhim, losing to Alexi. It's not the way around that you would think Zilly should be going. And then beat a Briar, which is fairly simple. And then last round, I'm playing for. I've already locked top 64. I'm playing for top 32, so basically paying for an extra $500 and a PTI.
Okay, which is nice.
Yeah, and I'm against an Oldham, which I'm like, obviously, in my last round, and unfortunately didn't win that one. So I came 39th or something like that.
It's close, but yeah, I mean, top 64. You got your $1,000, was it, or?
That's right.
$1,000. You've paid for most of your trip, and you've had a great weekend, barring some upset issues.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Nice. Well, congratulations on top 64 again. Another awesome performance in a big event. And it's interesting to see you do it with a different deck this time. Like there's definitely a difference between Fi and Azalea.
Yeah, it's been Chain, Fi, Azalea. If you would have told me like 6 months ago I'd be playing Azalea the next Pro Tour, I'd be like, it's going to have some good cards in outside.
Yeah, and it has come to pass. And I look back at when I first started the game, the first ever deck that I built for myself with cards that I'd opened in Arcane Rising was Azalea Blitz. And I played an online tournament back in 2020 with some American people. I went 1-3 in a Blitz tournament with Azalea, and I've never touched her again. So I applaud you for coming back round to Azalea. Now she's got the tools to do so. But it sounds like, Jake, you were the main driver for this as a competitive force from the UK. How was your first day? Like, what were your matchups like, and how did you feel that you played those?
So the first day started with the constructed. First game was control dash, which I was pretty happy to see. I mean, you'd think they can block too well, but they're not Oldham, so without Crown of Seeds, you're just a worse Oldham, really.
Okay.
They beat that quite fine. Second game was Alexi, so I should have been happy to see that, but I made a misplay where we shortcutted to damage, and I wanted to use Snapdragons, and said take 8 or whatever it was.
Okay.
I said okay instead of saying no, wait. Okay. And then I missed my codex for that misplay. So, and then they played their codex, which just snowballed the game out of control. And then the third game, it was Dromai, which historically has been the kind of hero that you would see, sort of, because it gets countered by a lot of decks. It just can't win against Ninja or other aggro kind of thing. So you kind of I wanted to stay above Dromai's, but turns out actually he's one of the best heroes in the tournament. Yeah. So lost to that one. It was the full Dragon Dromai, which is harder, I think, than the Empress Dromai.
Yes.
And then the fourth game was Katsu. So yeah, pretty happy to see Katsu. We've been testing against Katsu all weekend. Well, the day before.
Prior, and I mean, I was happy to see Katsu turn up as fourth most or fifth most prevalent deck in the meta, which was really interesting. I think massively propped up by Team Poland's decision to take it as a blanket deck for the whole team, which I thought that the unity they showed in that was amazing. Maybe not the best competitive decision, but I think they enjoyed themselves. And then you moved on into, so you are pretty happy with your CC run.
I was a little bit disappointed, actually. I thought should have been doing. I thought that depending on how the draft went, I'd probably be playing the Colin next day.
Okay.
But then the draft came around, and we've been practicing draft beforehand, and I just seem to have a lot of success if I just say I'm going to play Azuri.
Okay, so you just forced Azuri.
Yeah, because the format's kind of low power, so 3 blocks are like really good.
Really good, yeah.
Force Azuri 3-0.
Okay, so you finished day one on
5-2.
5-2. So both 5-2 after day one, and you as you say, you both made the decision to stick it out and go and play day 2.
Yeah.
Was there at 5-2, Jake? Was there anything in your mind saying you should just bail and do the calling, or were you definitely locked and loaded for day 2?
I kind of thought, oh no, it's going to be really sad if I go in and lose the first draft game tomorrow. But we're there for the Pro Tour, really, not there for the calling. So I thought, just go for it.
And then how did you start day 2 then? How did that draft go?
Same again, 4 Azuri, 3-0.
Nice.
Yeah, that's an insane deck as well. Got like 2 Red Dead Death Touch, 3. What's the one for 5? The bad. Spring Load. But it's really good in this draft, so yeah, happy to see that.
So just before we move on to your second set of CC games, how did you both feel? What was the chatter around the draft, after the drafts, around the sort of power of the pods? Because the stream games we saw were variable in terms of what pods had, good decks and bad decks. So, and then you just said, Jake, your Azuri deck for the second pod was just cracked. How did you feel the atmosphere in the room was after the drafts?
So when we went to the build time, there was Matt Rogers somewhere over to my right saying, that they've messed something up here because everyone's got a bunch of reds and not many yellows. So I didn't have anything to go off, but I thought, my deck's kind of ridiculous as well. So maybe he's right, maybe. But then after speaking to people after the fact, it kind of was varied between the pods. It wasn't just a consistent, everyone's got ridiculous decks.
So I mean, you could probably account for that with variation box to box, couldn't you? But I think they curated the packs, or they made sure that the collation of cards was more consistent than if you would have got it out of boxes. That was what I gathered anyway.
Yeah, I think they mixed. Go on.
I was gonna say, probably same as you. I think they were fiddling with packs card by card.
Yeah.
Taking is it a Belgian and a Japanese?
Yeah.
Swapping the cards around in that.
Okay.
I did notice. Yeah, did notice that on. When you're counting the cards out, there's the card backs are different shades.
Okay, so they were a mix of prints, like you say.
Yeah.
I felt in the card stock, in my first pack that I opened, it felt a certain way, and then the next one, the cards just felt different. That one felt like not a booster pack I've opened in the UK before, so I don't know if that was from the other
Japanese
side,
print. I know for the WTR Unlimited, the Japanese cards definitely felt thicker and more sort of matte.
That was it.
Yeah. So I wonder if I wonder if it's the same. That's really interesting. And did that affect the way you were approaching the draft, or was it just a by the by? I've happened to notice this on the way through.
For me, I didn't really memorize the sort of the pack makeup anyway, so I just try and take the best card for the seat or whatever.
We had a strategy. I mean, Jake had his own strategy of always playing Azuri,
yeah.
That also fits in sort of with the wider group strategy that we had, that we decided that none of us would ever draft Ranger of any ilk. So when I think I first picked a Blade Cuff in both of my drafts, which is funny because it's an assassin / ninja equipment.
Yeah.
And it's well, might as well be generic equipment as far as I'm concerned, because I'm not playing Ranger. So.
I think I can get on board with that approach. I'm not sure I could make a powerful enough Ranger deck in Outsiders draft for it to be consistent. But obviously we saw people do it. I think there was Tao was on stream a couple of times with a Ranger deck that looked very, very impressive. I just think you have to be so set on Ranger from first pick for that to be a thing.
Yeah, but mainly because you need to play literally every card you draft to not get fatigued.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so with draft out the way, you started your second round of 4 CC games, Jake, and you could afford at 8-2 by that point, you could afford to lose one game, maybe.
Yeah.
How were you feeling?
I was fine. That's taking it as it came. I wasn't thinking about top 8 or anything like that. I was just thinking about secure a PTI, I guess. Yeah.
Give you a turn. Give you another go.
Yeah. I mean, I've never secured a PTI before. I made it on a PQI, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Pro Quest invite. So I just wanted to get one of those so I could definitely make Worlds.
Okay. It's going to be in Europe this year, so it's going to be nice and close.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what were your matchups and how did you feel about them?
I think the first matchup was another Lexi.
Okay.
So I was just trying to make sure that I didn't make the same mistake as last time and just take it slow because you got lots of time. I mean, Azalea is sort of an aggro deck. Lexi's an aggro deck, so you can just take longer than normal on the turns. So I was just making sure I did everything correct. The next one I think was Mara's Dromai, which I did lose that. Got it to 1, but yeah, that's how you expect Dromai to go.
Close matchup, but not your favour.
I think that. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on what you were saying.
I was just going to say, the 2 bad matchups for the deck. Yeah, in total, I just Dromai and Oldham.
Okay. And then your last 2 matches were which matchup? Sorry.
Both Lexis.
Okay. So you played a lot of Lexi. You were pretty happy with your winning in being against the Lexi.
Yeah. So I was unfortunately it had to be Shamia, but it was one of us going to make it. We weren't sure actually at that point if either of us could make it because I think for me I was 1 point above him, and it was like for me to make it. One of the 2 games above us had to lose. Yeah. And then for him to make it, I think both had to lose, but I'm not sure on that. I think that's just what we thought at the time.
Yeah, I think the Ian Zhang won his match and then came 9th, which I think opened it up for you and Matt Folks to sneak in above, which I mean, watching it from this side of it was so exciting, like watching the streams and looking at the results. And I think LSS did a great thing this time. They had their sort of media team on the ground, as small as it was, with you guys in Baltimore, and they were updating their live blog. They were updating the standings every round, and they were I don't know if you guys know Mark Henderson, otherwise known as Skier, on the Discord. Like, he'd set up a spreadsheet to mine the data from their updates, so you could go and like look for certain players and search by text. It was really, really good of him to get it all set up. I think he's going to be using it for future events as well. But it was just amazing to have such good performance from a lot of UK players, and being able to follow you along the way was really exciting. It was really good, actually. So congratulations for getting into the top 8 of a Pro Tour at your first attempt. What an incredible run. How did you feel when you won? Obviously it was Shamir, so someone you've come up against before or from the community. But how did it feel when you realized that you were going to be playing in a Pro Tour quarterfinal?
It didn't register for a long time, I think. I was just overwhelmed at the time. I was just like, no, this isn't real life, I've got to wake up and play my, day 2 tomorrow. Yeah. Like, it was just the dream before.
So not only did it have to dawn on you that you were going to be playing in a quarterfinal, you've also guaranteed yourself, obviously, a PTI. You've won enough money to pay for the trip and probably your trip to Worlds as well. And then you see that you're playing an Oldham, the only Oldham to sneak into the top 8.
Mm.
How are you feeling at that point?
I was too happy to be disappointed. Okay. I thought, because I've already got unlucky matchups so far. So, Rob's faced 2 Oldhams by now.
Yeah.
And I've faced none. So I was just like, well, if it had to come at some point, it's best to be now.
Okay. All right. And I mean, you had, from the sounds of it, you'd built the deck to be like a Lexi killer, like an aggro killer. Lexi was the most prevalent deck in the format. I think it was a reasonable call. Were there more Oldhams than you expected, or more? Was it just Dramai that was the problem, or?
There was less than I expected, actually. I thought it would be the most represented.
Okay. I felt a bit silly going into the event because it's like, if you'd asked me and Jake like what we think is going to be the most played deck, we both would have said Oldham.
Yeah.
And then, what are you playing then? Azalea.
Yeah.
It's like it makes no sense.
Okay.
And then when we saw the spread, like so many Lexis, we were like, oh, thank God, that's actually great for us.
Yeah, and it turned out to be that way. So I thought, now, having like been through both of your runs, we could have a look a bit more at the deck itself, starting with your equipment. What was your stat? Is there any wiggle room for equipment in an Azalea deck?
Yeah, I'll start. You can chip in, Rob.
We've got obviously Death Dealer. Nothing's beating Death Dealer. Like you say, Rob, I think having card draw off every load is pretty incredible, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's almost like, I was thinking about it, like if you compare it to Redliner, because Redliner's free to use, but with Death Dealer you put one in and you get a card out, so it's like you always end up the same as Redliner, really, but sometimes up as well. So
yeah. And then Jake, take us through the rest of the equipment.
Yeah, sure. So Bullseyes is always going to be in the deck no matter what. There's no better arms. Sometimes, just deals 7 damage because you'll do your turn, maybe with a bolt and shot, just go again, and then they block it out, and then you would normally be, that's it, that's the end of the turn, but then you can just sometimes have one extra arrow, put it in there, and it gets through.
Mm-hmm.
Crow's Nest, it's just a standard Azalea quiver, because the other ones aren't as useful. Like the legendary Abyssal Depths quiver is, you don't run out of arrows in this deck, you run out of buffs.
Right.
So you wouldn't really consider that, I think. Yeah. Tunic is, I think I've never played a hero that abuses Tunic more, because everything's so redline in this deck.
Yeah.
Either costs 1 or 0, so you can sometimes just have a turn where it's like drill shot and a bunch of 0-3 buffs, and your entire turn is just Tunic, load with Death Dealer, play all your buffs, fire your drill shot, and you've pitched nothing.
It's just an incredible value, isn't it?
Yeah.
Perch grapplers versus snapdragons, though. That seems to be the only choice of equipment.
Yeah. So most matchups, you just want to have access to snapdragons because you can do some things like fire an arrow, snaps, and then use codex.
Yeah.
Which makes them discard a card and you don't discard a card in that situation. Perch grapplers comes in for a few matchups though. So the main ones are Bravo and Katsu.
Okay.
So Bravo is, I want to be able to 1 card block a choke slam or something like that. So you can just, prevent the crush effect from happening and save 1 card. And then Katsu line is sort of like stopping a Mask of Momentum trigger as well as the Whelming Gust Wave on hit. So you can just break up that line if you let Surging hit and then block with an arrow and Perch grapplers on the second link.
So you're getting good value out of that, and with the Whelming Gust Wave being only 4, you're covering it by the 1, which includes your breaking scales.
Yeah, so you can't play around Ancestral. You could cover the breaking scales up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's quite nice to have that block, but I guess you are giving up the 2 arrow turn that you would otherwise have maybe with the Snapdragons.
Yeah, I think with Katsu it doesn't come into play as much because the game has to go a certain amount of time for you actually to find this hand where your snaps is applicable.
Okay.
And Katsu is such a short game; it's probably 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah.
Okay. And then someone starts having to block. Yeah.
Fine. And obviously the Skullbone cross wrap, which I know, Rob, we were looking at in San Jose, and it was like $25 a card. And now it's come back into relevance. It's like back up $90, $100 a card, or maybe a bit less now. That is integral to Azalea's like every turn.
Yeah, I feel like this headpiece and her ability just is what makes the deck so consistent.
Yeah.
So we've been trying out some Lexi to see what it's all about, and it's like feels much less
a bit more
buttery
bricky.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just being able to like choose what you're going to draw with Death Dealer, or Arsenal and Arrow at the end of the turn, and then see what's on top. Sometimes put that to the bottom and then blind Azalea, because usually things that you'll usually improve your Arsenal. It might be an Arrow. You don't want to see an Arrow, but you'll usually dominate it anyway, so it's fine.
Did you try New Horizons, guys, or was it more of a this is definitely the way from the beginning?
We didn't try it because I don't think it goes with this build. It definitely doesn't go with Death Dealer, because I think Death Dealer even says you have no arrows in your arsenal, no cards in your arsenal, then you can use it. Yeah.
Okay. I have seen it used recently with Sandscour, obviously, but not applicable with the Death Dealer build. Cool. So, did you, just moving on to the main deck, did you have a core deck that you were running with sideboard options, or was it a straight 60 and then you just swapped in and out bits you needed?
We started off with a card, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we slowly found that some of the core cards, which are pretty much in like 99% of matchups, still might come out in certain ones. So the way I was doing it was just like taking 73 cards in and then take out 13 usually.
Okay, so 73 cards. Of those cards, how many sort of red arrows were you playing? Do you know?
Not sure
Of
the
the
exact number.
13, I think with the 13 we're always cutting. I think it was 3 poppers.
6.
Yeah, 3 battering bolts.
You got 3 poppers and the defense reaction, like in most matchups. Then it was 3 red arrows, 6 buffs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And
it's a bit Viscerai in keeping your ratios right.
Keeping the ratios like of yeah.
It's not 1-to-1 like Viscerai is, because you want to go like buff, 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 1 big arrow sort of thing.
Okay, so just like looking at we've got the Fabry deck build up here. So the battering bolts, if we go through bit by bit, the battering bolts themselves are just there for poppers. You're not using those as a fire.
Pretty much just poppers. Yeah, I think I'll bring them in for like matchups where they can fatigue you, because you play almost all the deck into those. In Oldham, we just play 73 cards.
Yeah. Bring them in against Dorinthia as well. Battering bolts.
Oh, because obviously they're not action cards; they're reaction cards a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine. Your Bolton shots you run at full rainbow, 9 Bolton shots. Obviously, what a card! I mean, with the number of buffs you're running, I guess you want the reds in your hand, but you don't really mind if it's going to give you go again, right?
Yeah. So we actually took them out at some point, but then we quickly realised that it's so important for consistency. Yeah. I think, because you want to be using Death Dealer every turn. Battering Bolt, the Rainbow, is just like 9 extra cards that you can actually arsenal and be happy about arsenaling them.
And they're definitely not going to get stuck.
Yeah, exactly. And then they just pair so well with Rain Razors, and then in turn that pairs so well with Codex. Just go a bit wide and actually use the full. If any turn where you get to use Death Dealer is a good one.
Okay.
And the blue ones are really important for Dramai as well. which is a lesson that I learned because I wanted to cut the blue ones for a while. But,
okay.
Yeah.
So why are they so important? Just for clearing smaller dragons or for pitching?
Basically, yeah. Basically, just for that, like we don't have much go again in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have, like Jake said, it pairs very well with Rain Razors, and if you can clear a Kyloria with a Rain Razored blue bolt and shot that you've loaded, and then because you get the on hit trigger for free.
Reload, yeah.
Lots and lots and lots of the on hits in the deck say if it hits a hero, like all the new ones basically say if it's a hero, but bolt and shot because it's from Aria says if it hits, it's reload, which is key.
Absolutely key. I hadn't even thought about that. It's a really nice, easy trigger for clearing dragons. That's amazing. And in terms of other red arrows, you've got drill shot, a 0 cost for 4, speaks for itself, has a reasonable on hit.
Yep, that's basically, we played it into pretty much everything, just because it's 0 cost, and then obviously against Oldhim we just hit the rampart sometimes, and then the game can start from there.
That's fair. And then infecting shot, you've got obviously the new tokens of blood rot pox. It does damage. It's an on hit that people 1 for 7 is a pretty good return if they're not going to block it.
Yeah, definitely. That's it.
Other red arrows, red in the ledger. How can we not just stop for a minute on red in the ledger? Because I think personally, I think that's the reason most people play Azalea over Lexi. I mean, Azalea specialization, and it stops people in their tracks.
Yeah, she's so Azalea doesn't deal the most damage, but with this card you can sort of make any aggro deck say you got to actually start blocking now. You can't just be racing me. That was very clutch into all the Lexis in the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and I guess in terms of, as you say, damage, raw damage output isn't the highest, but in terms of damage differential on a turn, if you get red in the ledger out, you've won that turn cycle.
Yep. Especially if they can't even block.
Yeah.
Because it's dominated.
Yeah. Nice. Remorseless. Is that as useful as I think it is, or is it just a nice 1 for 5?
Every time I think about trying to take Remorseless out for something else, I can't, because it can deal more damage than Infecting Shot does against aggro.
Yeah. And
then the D-React text is so good against defensive decks. Just so widely applicable.
Okay. And you found, Oldhim obviously being one of your worst matchups, having them not be able to play D-Reacts is nice, but with Crown of Seeds, it's just from Arsenal, isn't it? So it's less applicable.
It is definitely less applicable, but I think a lot of Oldhims want to be efficient and actually just not Crown if they can. They can use the Staunch from Arsenal, and this just says you can't
do that.
It's really hard to know when it's been good as well, when it's useful, because they're just Crown and you just don't know. They don't tell you. So
okay, but again, against some of the other decks out there, you are seeing a good return. And then the last red arrow is Sedation Shot, which again it gives you one of the new tokens, the Inertia token. Again, is that just a Lexi card? Is that in for everything?
It's just an Oldhim card, really.
Oh, okay.
An Oldhim and Wizard card, because anything where red in the ledger doesn't apply as well. I think that just slots in the slot. It's just to keep him off Crown of Seeds, really, if you can.
Obviously, Inertia, clearing your hand. It's like a Seek and Destroy, which you've also got in the deck. Clears your hand and your arsenal at the end of turn. Although, I guess with the Inertia, there is potential with Ponder tokens and things like that. They can change the triggers, but generally it's getting rid of their backup cards. They can't Crown the next turn if it's an Oldhim. They can't keep arrows if it's a Lexi.
Yeah, for sure.
you've got 3 instants in Rain Razors, which is obviously a fantastic card. Can be used at almost any time to buff arrows. Is there any time you wouldn't play Rain Razors?
Just play it in the deck in general, or just not play it out?
Both.
Well, I think we ended up cutting it at some point and then just realised that we needed it.
Okay.
And then if it only was to deal 2 damage that turn, I wouldn't play it against Oldhim. I'd play it against anyone if it's going to be replaced by a Ponder.
Yeah.
And then if it's sort of an aggro deck that's going to be over in 3 turns, 4 turns, then you can just play it out if it means an on-hit going through or something like that.
As you said, you're not necessarily going wide often, so you're maybe not getting as much value out of it as Lexi did. But I think the fact that you can play it as an instant is pretty good. Yeah.
We usually in the older matchup, it's quite a crucial card that we. I use the term pitch stacking loosely here because it's mainly what you tend to do is you just every time you draw a Codex or a Rain Razors, you pitch it, and hopefully you also pitch some Bolton shots. And then by the time you've not really got many cards left, hopefully you can orchestrate a hand together where you've got like a couple of Rain Razors, a couple of Bolton shots, and maybe you can Death Dealer into a Codex, and then that hand is that one big combo hand.
That's your hand to go for it, yeah. And the fact that it's yellow as well means it'll pay for a whole turn if you need it to.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you find you were pitching the Codexes, the Deadeyes, the Rain Razors much, or were you trying to keep hold of them?
I think with Codex, my philosophy is if you can play it without discarding, then you should.
Okay.
As long as you can actually, you got a clear arsenal. But yeah, pitch it. If you can't, then just pitch it. It's fine.
I guess you're trying to, as you say, you're trying to go for the card advantage. If they have to discard and you don't, then that's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You've got a couple of cards that are just sort of go wider cards. You've got Ravenous Rabble, a nice common back from Arcane Rising and also Outsiders. Enlightened Strike, I guess you would be mainly going wide with that, or is that for the end of turn card draw?
A bit of both. So it's sort of like a hand fixer because if you have 3 arrows in your hand, you're going to load 1, and then you're going to hopefully have a buff for that, and then you can use 2 cards out of your hand, whereas if you didn't have E-Strike, you'd be sitting there with a card in your hand at the end. So
nice. And I mean, you've got to keep your ratios, as you said earlier, Rob, with attacks and non-attacks. Are there any of the non-attacks buffs that you were particularly happy with in the deck? Are there any that really really stood out for you during your run?
Every time I play Premeditate, it feels like a good turn.
Yeah.
That's by far the best one. And as with Frailty, I think ended up in our deck quite late on, which ended up being pretty useful against like the ninjas and stuff like that. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, Premeditate is my number one. It's going to be the MVP of the buffs, just because it also works on, well, not just because that, but it also works on Ravenous Rabble, E-Strike, so you can sort of play it out, and the Ponder buff will apply whenever something hits, and then the 0-for-3 buff actually just applies to the arrow, so you can sort of make it so you always get the Ponder, because they're never going to be full blocking the whole turn.
Yeah.
And the Lace with Frailty was surprisingly good, I think, especially with the amount of Lexis, because it can just, if they go 3 wide, you've got 3 life extra from that. And also just turns off Bolton shot as well for them. They have to start loading it with the go again instead of the +1, which is funny.
Yeah, that obviously makes a big difference to how wide they can go, and I'm sure you can catch people out with that effect. I know it gets me every now and then playing as Katsu. You're like, oh, I'll pitch one for a Kodachi and then come in for, 0. Like, damn. You mentioned bringing 6 of the non-attack buffs out in most matchups. Were they generally the same 6, or did they rotate depending on the matchup?
Heavily rotated, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. So like the ones that I can see I would be taking out a lot would be Release Attention, just because if you're playing into an aggro deck, they probably don't have defense reactions, never mind playing them from Arsenal.
Yeah.
Sometimes take out some of the lace with inertias, because they don't really. It doesn't help if the deck can just play the whole hand anyway. They can just play around it by playing the whole hand.
Yeah.
So you don't want to overload on those. So and then you take out the lace with frailties if they're not sort of playing from Arsenal or playing weapons.
Okay, so they were the main 3 that rotated out as a 6. I'm guessing
melting points sometimes as well.
Okay, is that because you're not playing it against one-handed weapons, or because it costs 1, or a bit of everything?
Because it costs 1. The main reason it's in there is because it's 3 block.
Yeah.
So against drum, I actually take it out because sometimes you'll have an all red hand and you just always need to full gas the Dromai. So you don't want to have something that costs 1.
So just looking at this, then you had 1 defense reaction, just the Boulder Trap. That was played against Oldham because you said you go with all 73 cards, and anything else?
I would have played against Bravo, but I didn't see any.
Okay.
Just because you want to, 2 card, cover up a Dominate, stop the crush effect.
And so the deck composition then was 6 blues. Obviously, Spy Sniping and Knock the Death Whistle are pretty important cards in general, but they could also be pitched to cover an expensive turn if you needed to.
Should be 9 blues.
Cool.
Bolton shots.
Oh, sorry, Bolton shots. Yeah, they're up here. I'm being a numpty with Fabry. So 9 blues. You've got your Spy Snipings, Knock the Death Whistle, and Bolton shots. With your 13 yellows.
Yep, that's correct.
And then the rest of your cards, 51, are all reds. So like you said, very red line deck. Roughly equal numbers, arrows or attacks and non-attacks. And you've helped us out there with some sort of matchup changes that you made regularly throughout the event. Just give us some sort of final thoughts on how the deck performed for both of you, or how you felt differently about the deck maybe, and then how you might change it going forward, and whether it's a deck that you're going to be sticking with. Rob, maybe you start on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Antwerp in 2 weeks, which I'm currently stressing about what I'm going to play, because I've got Oldham is just Oldham. Not only Oldham has just won the last Pro Tour, but also a particularly annoying version of Oldham with lots of defense reactions. And just below that, you've got Dromais, and you're like, oh, great, those are the decks that we don't want to be seeing. Then, I've tried out playing some Lexi recently, and it's really hard to get off of the drug of just how efficient and clean your turns are.
Yeah.
I've played a couple of games with Lexi where I just play 3 of a kind and draw 2 Winter's Bites and a blue arrow, and I'm like, amazing. I don't want to do this.
But there is a fuseless version of Lexi out there.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, they still play these cards if it isn't Winter's Bite for the mirror, it's something else like Ice Quake or something. I don't know. I find it hard to, like I say, I currently feel like I'm gonna be playing Azalea again.
Okay.
Because like the Oldham matchup is winnable. And I don't know if have you seen the spreadsheet that someone's made of all of the results and stuff from the PT?
No, I
Someone's gone
haven't.
through like, yeah, it's worth. I'll send you it after
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
It's like a big. I don't know how much info's in there, but it looks like a fair amount, and all the win percentages across like matchup versus matchup, and like
Wow.
Lexi's only 50% against Oldham,
Yeah.
so and Azalea, there's only a few Azaleas, and I think Azalea was like a 30% against
Okay.
Oldham.
So the benefit isn't huge against that one matchup.
Exactly. So currently where I'm sat, I mean, I don't think I'll be taking Kano, but it's like lingering in the back of my mind.
CC Kano.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I like the thinking that obviously there's been less of it since Oasis Respite came in and things like Brush Off. And but again, if people aren't putting it in their deck and they're not respecting it in the first place, then maybe it's a good shout.
Yeah, I don't think I'll take the plunge, but
He's teasing us, folks. He's teasing us. And what about you, Jake? How are you feeling about the deck's power level? Like, how did you? I mean, obviously you came top 8, so again, congratulations! It's an incredible run. But where do you see it going from here?
So we've had some discussions, and I think we might. Well, I might anyway. I'm going to be testing Dreadbore.
Okay.
I don't know how that's going to go though. I played one game with Enna's like, where's my card draw?
Yeah.
It feels so much worse. But because Michael Feng's list consists of, I think, 13 or so defense reactions, which is quite a number. If he ends up with 2 in one hand, you can do quite some damage. But yeah, definitely do miss the draw. And I was thinking of taking a bit more for Dromai, because Dromai feels a little bit more winnable. Like a few card changes might swing it, whereas for Oldham, it's just, I don't know if a few cards will do the trick.
So Oldham, I think Oldham might need a complete revamp rather than a bit of a tweak.
It might just be a different hero if you want to beat Oldham.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I think I'll stick on Azalea.
Okay, no, I like the commitment. I think she's definitely been in a bad place for a long time, and the cards that have come along, some of the power levels that we've seen have been frankly ridiculous when you put them with things like Red in the Ledger. I think on its own, Codex of Frailty isn't sort of crazy. It's not as bad as people have been complaining about, but when you put it with cards like Death Touch or Red in the Ledger, it adds a huge amount to a turn for the Ranger or Assassin hero. So questions up in the air then about hero going forward. Do you see Azalea sticking around in the meta, even if you're taking her as a hero to Antwerp? Do you see her being represented well, or do you think everyone's going to jump ship onto Dromai, Lexi, and Oldham again?
Late Rob.
I don't think she's going to be represented very well, to be honest. Like she wasn't at the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
And like realistically as well, on paper again, it doesn't seem like it's a good idea to be playing Azalea. Like I said, if Oldham wins
Oldham's
the
best,
yeah. But the thing is, you sit down, especially at a calling. I mean, the calling was won by Dash.
Yeah.
Like callings, you just play against what people want to play, realistically. And people typically like to play aggro decks, which does make Azalea sound promising.
Guys, I just want to say thank you for giving me your time on a Saturday evening. It's been amazing to talk through the deck with you. What is even better is talking to 2 UK players who have performed incredibly well at the Pro Tour, and Rob, a special mention for consistently performing well at big high level events. So please keep going, keep pushing the UK scene forward, and I am really looking forward to catching up with you after the Road to National season and seeing how things have gone, especially with Antwerp. So again, thank you very much. Any last words before we finish up here, boys? Jake?
No, nothing from me.
Rob?
I just want to say well done to Jake. Like you said earlier, it's his first Pro Tour and top 8 it. Like, you can't get much better than that, really.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and well done on the run. It sounds like it was an incredible weekend for atmosphere, for play. I know the stream was fantastic, and thank you very much both, and I will speak to you all soon.
Thank you.